What's up, everybody? Feeling good this morning? The weather's a little dreary. What's up with our weather? Can it stay something, hot or cold, one or the other? Let's do this. Let's welcome everybody. We got a lot of people watching this morning from Pastor Mike says from Italy and everywhere in between. We got our Canadian, all kind of connection as well. I hear we got a family from Canada in the room. Where are you? Our Canadian family in the room. Stand up. Stand up, if you will. You're like, how did he know that? We have ears and eyes everywhere. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Thanks for bringing the weather. We appreciate that. That's awesome. Let's do this morning. Let's start by doing something a little weird, unorthodox in church. Grab your smartphone. Get it out. Can't beat them, join them. Get it out. Put it on silent, but I need you to do me a favor. Instead of greeting each other today, we're going to take selfies all over the room with each other. So in just a minute, I'm going to have you stand up. I want you to get creative. I want you the classic selfie now, I want you to put you in the picture. You can put people, you can photobomb, you can do whatever you want. On the count of 3, ready? Stand up. 1, 2, 3. Get up, take a minute, find somebody you didn't come with, and selfie away, people. Selfie away. Love it. Come on, let's get in, everybody. Come on, let's turn around. Let's get in a picture. Get in a picture. We got it? That's it. Yes, here we go. All right, perfect. All right, who would have thought? Audience participation. We all love this. This is amazing. Livelihood in church. All right, now do me a favor. One other step. We got to do the true definition of a selfie. A selfie, the definition is to take a picture of yourself and post it on social media. So get on your social media apps right now and post it. Here's what I want. Let's do a little church propaganda this morning, right here, right now. Tag the church. Put yourself in it, say something creative. What's missing in church is you or whatever. Do something right now. Get on social media right this second. TikTok, if you're China, let's see, Facebook, whatever. Just get on whatever app, Instagram, put it on social media right now. Church, tag the church, okay? Tag the location of the church. You can't beat them, join them. What God meant for, or what the Satan meant for evil, God will mean for good. We're going to do a little church promotion right this second. Do it. Come on, everybody. You're like, this feels great. Let's do this more often. Online, I hope you did it as well. Hopefully you took a picture of us on the screen and you with it. Let's go. Let's all of us participate. All right, so you're like, why did we just do that? That was a little weird for church. Selfies. Let's talk about the house and then let's talk about selfies. We started a series last week called Bigger Houses. There is a phenomenon in our world today of downsizing. People are downsizing. They say less real estate equals less hassle. Anybody live in something smaller than you used to? Let's see some hands. Look around, lots of people. My son, is his fiance in the room? Shelby, are you in the room? Shelby, stand up in the back row. Mason's on the camera, that's why, okay. Mason and Shelby are getting married in less than 2 months. And guess where they're going to live for the first year or two? And they're excited as punch. They're going to live in an RV. They're like, oh, we're on our honeymoon. It's going to be great. Now, Mason's not huge. He's 5'11". I don't know why you didn't get to be 6 feet, brother. I'm going to pick on you a lot today, but maybe it has something to do with your 5'2" mother. Shelby, Mason's fiance, she's 4'10". My daughter's 5'1", so Mason and Shelby, they're excited like crazy to live in an RV. It's apparently the new fad. Less real estate, less hassle. Mason's like, we got less to clean. We can spend more time just hanging out together. And I'm thinking, all right, well, this is truly a phenomenon in the last 15 years. But the premise of the series is this. Maybe God wants more real estate for us than we want for ourselves when it comes to things that matter. Maybe we should not be downsizing things that matter. In our downsizing culture, we are downsizing truths that God wants us to have more real estate in. We are settling for very small places and spaces when it comes to what matters. So selfies. That's a phenomenon as well. That's the last, 15 to 17 years. That's all it really is since the invention of the smartphone. When did the smartphone really come out in earnest? 2005, 6, and 7. Most of us started taking selfies then until today. And you would have thought through the years the fad would have worn out, but it's getting worse. We're addicted. 92 million selfies taken every single day. Some of you are like, really? Millennials, they say the average millennial will take 26,000 selfies, pictures of themselves in their lifetime. And some girls in this room are like, that's before lunch. It's crazy to think about. Now, I'm old. I like when I go on vacation and I like taking pictures with my smartphone, but when I go to the beach, I take a picture of the beach. And my wife will go, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean, what am I doing? I'm taking a picture of the beach. She goes, no one's in the photo. You'll never look at that again. I'm like, well, my screensaver on my computer will. And I'm like, okay, hold on, let me get it. Is that better, honey? She's like, no, you got to have the camera a little higher because the selfie's there's got to be a certain angle. Ladies, you know this, right? If it's eye level, it's like it makes me look fatter. And my wife's like, Brent, get a better angle. And no, this is my feminine side. No, this is my strong side. This is the side. So here's the stats, ready? The picture that you just took, and everyone looked at it. Did anybody not look at the picture you took? Like 4 of you. The rest of us are like, you ladies are like my wife, delete that now. That's horrible. Delete that. The statistics say that you will look at a selfie and you will decide in 11 seconds if you're satisfied with that photograph. 11 seconds is what it takes. But it takes us 26 minutes to determine if we're going to post that on social media. 11 seconds, it's okay, I look good. 26 minutes, should the world see this or not? Is this my best foot forward? Let me filter it a little bit. Is there a slim mode? Now, I think we have a picture of selfies on the screen. Do we have a picture that I haven't even looked at all week? I've kind of got into it because apparently I didn't even realize, I thought it was a stock photo, but my son is right smack dab in the middle. I don't know how that got on there. But selfies are a phenomenon. It's amazing to think about. 4% of all pictures taken today are now selfies. That's a lot of pictures. And this is a weird, creepy stat. 8% of people 18 to 34 years old now think it's acceptable to take a selfie at a funeral. Is that with or without the casket? I mean, is it, man, he doesn't look very good. It's weird to think about how weird we've gotten. I heard a survey 2 weeks ago that said the average American today thinks 2/3 of all Americans are selfish people. Who agrees with that survey? You think, Brent, most people are selfish today. So we're going to talk about, for just a moment, I'm going to give you a historical fact. Does anyone know who took the very first selfie ever that we know of historically? You're like, I don't know. Somebody from China. I don't know. No, there was a Greek mythical god. His name was Narcissus. Anybody ever heard of Narcissus? You're like, what do you mean? Greek mythical god. They did not have a smartphone, Brent. He did not take a selfie. Well, the story goes that he went by a pond one day in a calm, clear day, but it was really scorching hot, and he wanted to get something to drink. So he bent over to get something to drink, and the pond was so calm that he caught the reflection of himself on the water. And apparently he fell in love with himself. He's like, ooh, I look good. And the story goes he killed himself because he couldn't have a relationship with the image that he saw on the water, himself. And you're like, that's creepy. We get the word narcissistic from that person. You realize that. Narcissism. Most people today suffer with a mental disorder called narcissism. To pick on the young generation, a lot of psychologists say that over 40% of this young generation that grew up with the smartphones now suffer with this mental disorder called narcissism. 40%, almost 30% higher than it was 30 years ago. People have this inflated look, this self-absorbed, like, look at me. Narcissism, this is what it means, a mental condition in which people have an uncertain, unreasonably high sense of their own importance. They are self-absorbed. 40% today are saying the young generation are narcissistic. We're too into ourselves. I disagree with that. I'm gonna give some props to the young generation. I don't think it's them. I think it's all of us that struggle with it today. Case in point, Dr. Keith Thornton. Dr. Keith came into my office on Monday. I love Keith. We always have a Monday morning powwow, everything that's gone on, things that we need to be praying for, lots of stuff happening. And he came in this week and he said, Brent, man, your message last week, and I know I talked about the end times last week, and that was an edge of your seater type message. But Keith comes in, he goes, Brent, man, that was incredible. I'm thinking, thanks, Keith. And he goes, it was really incredible, probably because you mentioned me 43 times. And as he's talking, I'm literally at that moment in early Monday typing on my computer about this sermon about narcissistic. And I said, Keith, thanks for giving me just sermon illustrations right here. Dr. Keith Thornton equals narcissist. And I moved on. Now I pick on him, and that's not true. But it is true that most of us are self-absorbed today. Most of us don't struggle with idol worship per se, like they used to in the Old Testament. Today, more than ever, we struggle with self-worship. Even though we do struggle with idols, whatever we put in the place of God, today, more than ever, it's self-worship. So the cure for narcissism, and this is my whole point of this up front, is worship. But not just worship, theistic worship. Not self-worship, sovereign worship. Worshiping our Savior. Getting the focus off of ourselves and putting it onto God. You're like, Brent, I know that, but we don't know that. We have blurred the lines so bad, we don't even know what worship is anymore. We think worship is just coming to church with a bunch of religious people and singing a few songs and hearing a sermon, and that is worship. No, all of us are worshipers. We have lost our focus. Everybody look at my shirt. Come on. Stare at it. All you people are going to get, my wife says, button your jacket because I'm getting a migraine. We've lost our focus when it comes to worship. Now, 2 pictures will come on the screen. All of us are worshipers. Case in point, the solar eclipse. I mentioned it last week. I watched Stephanie Abrams on the Weather Channel lose her mind, worshiping that moment of totality, talking about washing windows. People were going nuts, hugging each other. This is amazing. And you're like, yeah, those solar eclipse people are weird. Have you been to a concert recently? Now, I didn't pick that photo. That was Heather on staff. She must be a Swiftie. I'm not going to Taylor Swift, but I made a mistake 2 years ago to take my wife to see Carrie Underwood at Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky for her birthday. She drugged me to a Carrie Underwood concert. And I couldn't even enjoy the concert because everybody around me, they were so into worshiping Carrie Underwood that I almost vomited. People were talking about washing windows on steroids. I'm like, listen, the only time you raise your hand here is Jesus take the wheel. Other than that, calm down. Has anybody been to a concert? Picking on my son and Shelby, his fiance. They're concert connoisseurs. They love to go to concerts, country concerts. They are all about it. Not as bad as Lou and Gail on the front row. They go to Christian concerts. They're Christians. Mason and Shelby go to country concerts. They have an issue. Mason told me, I went last week to see, who was it, Mason, screaming out, Tyler Childress? Why are you going to him? You're a Christian, right? Anyway, Mason said, Dad, Shelby and I got tickets in the pit. I'm like, what's the pit? Because that's where you pay extra money to stand up the whole time. I'm like, awesome. Because no, we're on the front row. And he goes, Dad, Thompson Bowling was packed to the rafters, and I stand on the front row, and I turn around, and I see Thompson Bowling, and I see everybody's hands up, and they're all worshiping. He goes, Dad, you're right. People, we're all worshipers. People were going nuts. The greatest definition I've ever used in worship will come on the screen. Write it down. Think about it. Just remember this. Worship is defined as having an intense passion or esteem for a person, a place, or a thing. Now, that is a definition I've used for 20 years. I got a new definition that I did not make up, but boy, I wish I did. But this is our generation. Read this next. Bring it up, guys. This next definition of worship. Today, we have become a generation of people. Here we go. Let's talk about this for a minute. That worship our work hard at our play, but we play around when it comes to worship. Boy, we have people in this room that worship work. You have such esteem and such, man, you love working. Some of you are like, that ain't me. Some guys in our church, man, they love it. Keith and I were talking about a guy this week that talked about this to him recently, that he spent 10 years of his life working every single day and missed 10 years of his life with his family. But boy, he loved to work, loved to make the Benjamins. Love it, man, love the deals. I'm going to tell you, I'm a workaholic. My son and daughter will tell you that they've never really known Dad, that his mind's not always going, doing something, thinking about what's next, always, constantly. I love it. The air that I breathe is this moment right here. I love that we can spend time together because this hour that we have is some of the most sanity, it's the most truthful hour that we have all week long. In a world that's gone berserk, we have this moment to worship the one true God. We blur the lines, though, don't we? But in a world today, we work really hard at our play. Case in point, some of you parents, you spend $48,000 to spend the week at Disney World with your 2 4-year-olds. You stand in line an hour at Dumbo. And I think, who's the Dumbo? You go down there, it's hot, there's a gazillion people, you spend a bazillion dollars, and how many people come, I'm so tired when I got home. I need a vacation from my vacation. You get a divorce, your kids are in foster care, it's all because of Disney World. We work really hard. Some of you are like, Brent, yeah, you go get them. Those same guys are saying, go get them. You get up at 4:30 in the morning to go get that deer. I'm working hard today. I get up way before farmers do. I walk 7 miles in the snow uphill both ways. I get in that deer stand and I live there. I'm bored to death for 22 hours, but that 12 seconds that I can take that deer's life is amazing. Love it. I'm a golfer. I get up, I'll go throw my back out to play golf. My wife's like, why are you playing golf? You're walking around like you're an S. I can't move. I'm like, it's so much fun. I'm working hard at it. She's like, what are you going to be on the PGA Tour? You're 54. You barely can break 80. What are you doing? I'm like, I love it. You just spent $800 on a new putter. No, I didn't. I got 10% off. It was on sale. It was a sin not to get it at J. Floyd's. We work really hard at our play, do we not? We almost anymore times have shifted. Keith and I talked about that. We probably worship our play. We work hard at our work. But it's still true. We all play around when it comes to worship. I mean, we've studied this. You realize at our church, and I think we're a little above average, still people come an average maybe of just a little under 2.1 times a month. Just right at 2 times a month, people will come to church. We have 5 identical options over 3 different days. Many of us, when we think about spending time with God alone and worshiping Him for who He is and what He has done, we play around when it comes to that. If there's nothing else to do and the Wi-Fi is down, and we just happen to be one day at the beach and we just happen to be in maybe a low point, hey boy, I might need to spend some time. We come to church and we think to ourselves, I'll never raise my hand in church. Tim Hawkins, that's classic Tim Hawkins, and it's very true. I mean, we have so jacked up what worship is, but let's talk about that for a minute. Let's just have a little bit of a moment with this, because some of us come into church and we so stiff-arm this moment corporately together. I mean, Canaan he just poured his heart. I love that song we just sang. God, you're the same yesterday, today, and forever. No matter what we go through in life, God, you are with me. When you worship yourself, you will never find what you're looking for. You will always be disappointed. But when you and I take time to worship our Savior, it makes all the difference. So I grew up in church. I grew up Wesleyan Methodist. I grew up very fundamental conservative church. That's how my grandparents were, my parents were for a lot of years until we came up here in the mid-90s and started a non-denominational community church. But I grew up, like a lot of you grew up, very Baptistic in my kind of worship setting. The church that I grew up in as a kid, we did not raise our hands. Who grew up in a church like that? We're not raising our hands. That's just not going to happen. I mean, we might do the little chicken wing or something right here, maybe the TV or the big screen, but we ain't going beyond that. And that was just kind of how I grew up. But if you see me today, all these years later, now I'm not going to be that narcissistic worshiper. I used to call them granolas, fruits, flakes, and nuts all mixed in together. And you've seen those people that, we're a little over the top. We're like, hey, look at me. I'm worshiping better than you. But to wash the windows or to raise your hands, I love it. I love that freedom. And you're like, well, why do we do that? That seems weird. Brent, I know we go to Kenny Chesney at the stadium and we raise our hands, but that's where we have liquid courage. If we serve beer at the guest services here at church, I'll probably raise my hands a lot more. But I'm right. Whether it's a sporting event or a concert or whatever, we see worship at a whole other level that when we come to worship Almighty God, when we come into this place, many of us are like the lady that walked out of church last week. And I know my sermon was long last week. And she walked out of church, and this is what she said. It was a compliment to me. She goes, Brent, I liked this service because we expedited the music. We had very little announcements because I had a lot to say about the end times, and then we had baptism. She goes, that's what I think. Our church should be more of that. You should preach 50 minutes. We don't need that music or anything like that. And I know she said it as a compliment, but I went home and I asked my son. I picked on him. He can pick on me. I said, Mason, was the sermon long today? And he goes, yeah, Dad, it was really long. He goes, but it was great. I was on the edge of my seat. You were talking end time stuff. I thought I was going to die or Jesus was going to return. So we were all with you the whole time. It was riveting. But then he knows how to ground me. He looked at me and he walked away. He goes, just don't make a habit of that. Just keep it. The only reason I say that is I think sometimes, and I see us streaming in, I get all that. I see us coming to church and we're like, hey, okay, the music is just kind of filling some time. Absolutely not. To drop the walls of worship, the Bible says when we lift up the name of God, we get lifted up. And it sets the tone for us to humble ourselves and surrender to the moment that we can hear the truth and say, wait a minute, maybe worship is not all about me. Maybe it's all about God. And I get all this stuff. I'm not meddling, but I don't like to hear, and I've heard it my whole life. If I could show you all the emails I got basically saying the same thing, you would kind of be disappointed with humanity. You'd be like, what? But how many people are like, I'm not going to leave the church. The worship's not for me. That's not what I want to hear. That's not what I'm like, I get all those things, different strokes for different folks. But when we walk in the door, we've sure blurred the lines when it comes to our focus on worship, when it's all about what we are. It's us worshiping an audience of one. It's all about the focus to the truth. And for us as a church, we're really eclectic when it comes to all the different styles of music that we do. Sadly today, too many of us are wasting our worship. Too many of us today, we're all worshipers. We're all made to worship. We waste our worship. We'll raise our hands for anything that we love. But when it comes to church, there seems to be a double standard. So when you see me, when I stand here and lead a song, my hands will be up. Not because I'm standing on the stage. If you see me at the Good Friday service when I'm sitting down there, and it's just kind of a different service for me to sit up front on the front row with my wife. I never get to do that, and my hands are raised. Anytime in worship, if I walk my dog, you might even see me. You're like, Brent is Looney Tunes. He's lost his mind that I'm walking around the neighborhood, and sometimes I'll be listening to a song, and my hand will be up. Why do I do that? The best example I can give you is this. I'm a grandfather now. It's been a long time since I remember my kids doing this, but boy, this is the perfect age of being a grandparent. I have a 3-year-old granddaughter. She will walk into the room, whether it's at my home or here at the office, and it doesn't matter. Without fail, she walks in the door with her hands up. And I know what it means. Papa, pick me up. Papa, I don't want you up there and me down here. I want to spend some time with you. She's so adorable. And I pick her up and she grabs me, she bear hugs me, she grabs my face, she kisses me on the cheek and says, Papa, I love you. And I think to myself in my mind, that's exactly the way I want to be when it comes to God. Hey, God, I'm here. Pick me up. I really need you. I love you. Now, adults, we don't do that. If Lou comes to me after church with his hands up like this, Pastor, can you pick me up? I really need it. I'm going to run the other direction. But Lou, stand up. What do adults do? Adults, we walk in the door and we go, What's up, buddy? Good to see you. Why do we shake hands? Okay, it's a lot of cultural things, but let me tell you one of the things that I look at now. We shake hands because we're like, hey, welcome. I'm glad you're in my presence. It's so good to see you. If you're a bank robber, anybody robbed a bank? It's pathways, you never know. If you walk out of a bank and you rob the bank and police are waiting you at the front door, what will the police say immediately to you? Why? Because you can't really do anything else when your hands are up. So put it all together. Why do I raise my hands? Hey, God, I want you to pick me up. I want to welcome you. You're here, but I just want you to know how much I need you, and I welcome your presence. And my hands are up, by the way, so I can't really do anything else. I don't want to be distracted in this moment. And it's a moment of submission. Many of us, are we really going to submit to Kenny Chesney and not submit to God? Are we really going to submit to Carrie Underwood? I saw people it just ain't the young people. I saw an old couple that were way older than Yvonne and I. I thought, is Jesus on the stage, right? I mean, what is happening here? And you're like, well, Brent, and they were. But you know what I mean? Are we really going to surrender to the great Tennessee Volunteers and not submit to God? Last time I checked, the Vols let us down. You're like, Brent, I know we don't know this. We have jacked up what worship is. We live in a tiny house of worship. God wants way more real estate for us when it comes to worship. Worship is all-encompassing. It's all intrinsic. You realize the Bible mentions worship 8,629 times. It's a lot. And you know this, right? Worship is played out on a competitive court. A lot of things vie for our attention. A lot of things. We struggle like crazy when it comes to, hey, man, there's so many things that we're passionate about, so much we love and want to do. So as a kid, I grew up with this verse of Scripture. I grew up as a child of the 70s and a teenager of the 80s, and Psalm 100 verse 4 says this. Most of you know this psalm. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and enter God's courts with praise. How many people have ever heard that psalm before? In the 80s. Who grew up in church in the 80s? Let's see some hands. Remember the song we used to sing? It was the Boom Chuck song. I will enter his gates with thanksgiving in my heart. I will enter his courts with praise. Who grew up with that song, remember? You're like, I'm glad I didn't grow up in the 80s. Oh, we wore that one out. As a kid, I used to think, I know it's wrong. I mean, I'm misinterpreting this verse, Lou. This is not the right interpretation of the verse. I used to think when I sang this as a kid that we're on some tennis court somewhere and we're playing serve and volley, that this is God's court. Today we would call it pickleball, but that's a game for babies that adults play. Just kidding. I don't know if you've seen that commercial lately. I know that's not what courts means. It's God's kingdom and princely and palace. But boy, I think about that a lot. Worship is played out on a competitive court. We give praise to anything and everything except what matters. Many of us, we do not put so much esteem and passion like, you know what? It's the air that I breathe. Think about our world. If we would all get up in the morning and go, the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to worship God for who he is. We're going to lift our hands when it comes to just in our hearts and minds and say, God, pick me up in this moment. I welcome you in my presence and my decisions today. I need you today. For me, I struggle with anxiety. I told you that. I've told you how I've overcome it. I have a playlist on my phone. I have two playlists, two prayer playlists, lots of songs. Both of those playlists, whichever prayer playlist I hit, if it's after midnight and the demons come at me in the darkness, and I'm feeling that like, man, I'm overwhelmed, you know what? I don't put on a podcast about being the best person that I can be. I put on a prayer list, and the number one song on that prayer list is a song called Rescue. And it says, I need you, Jesus, to come to my rescue. Where else can I go? It changes everything. When we lift up God, we get lifted up. When we take the focus off of ourselves, things become crystal clear. And the cure for narcissism, the cure for selfishness, the cure for a lot of things that ails us is theistic worship, sovereign worship, worshiping God for who He is. So Psalm 95 is where we'll land the rest of this time. We're going to read this whole chapter. You're like, the whole chapter? How much time you got left? It's 11 verses. It's a psalm that most people would say should be 2 psalms. It maybe was 2 psalms. I don't think so. I think it's entitled in totality the way it is. We don't know if it's David who wrote it, but the psalm seems to be moody. Anybody have a person sitting next to you that's a pretty moody individual? Don't say a word. Look straight ahead, or the mood will change immediately. It's pretty fascinating. This psalm, though, as we close, I want you to think about this psalm. I want you to take this psalm home with you. I want you to lock in on this psalm because it helps us reorientate. It helps us focus when it comes to worship, and it brings out some very important things to think about when it comes to worshiping God. Verse 1 says, "Come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before Him with thanksgiving and extol Him with music and song. For the Lord is the great God, the great King above all gods. In His hand are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to Him. The sea is His, for He made it, and His hands formed the dry land." Worship, true worship, is God as His subject and God as the true source of all things. Worship should be exciting. When people come to church, and I know we're different, we're eclectic, I get all of that. They come to church and are like, this church is just, there's too much celebration here. There's too much laughter. I had people leave the church a long time ago because of the way I do baptism. I threw water on people one service. And it was just a moment of excitement. They're like, you shouldn't do that. So I'm thinking to myself, and I don't know if they talk that way, but I just kind of thought to myself, should baptisms be like a funeral? That's not what the Bible says. The Bible says when one person is saved, there's a party in heaven. And if you guys are not actively involved of seeing life change on display, and that's too familiar and that's too boring, I'm throwing water on you. Somebody needs to wake us up. We sing songs, we should lift up our hands. We should sing. Dads in this room, you should come to church and you should be the first person to lift your hands, not in some weird granola way, but you can lift your hands saying, God, welcome into our we need you in our lives. Can you imagine what your wife and your kids are going to look like when they see Dad surrendering his life, saying, I need you. God, I need you in my life. I need you in my home. You're like, well, Brent, this is just way too, I don't know. You're making me nervous. Hey, I go to concerts and I'm this guy. I come to church and I'm kind of this guy. I feel like, have you ever seen the movie Hitch with Will Smith and Kevin James? And Kevin James is all trying to do this, and Will smacked him in the face. Actually, that's not a good reference. Will Smith hitting somebody. But remember, Will goes, hey, you need to live right here. I kind of feel like I live right there, but when I come to church, I'm telling you, there's something about a song that I sing, and I'm going to raise my hand. Canaan and I had a discussion, a little behind the scenes. First time he sang this week, he came out here, and Canaan's, he's working. I love Canaan. He's working it out. Great kid, great voice. And I'm like, Canaan, I'm talking about lifting your hands. Lift up your hand. And I could tell he's like, Brent, I don't know, man. Did you see him that last service? I looked at him when he walked out. I said, dude, that's what it's all about. Not about performing. It's about you. I could see it. Hey, God, no matter what I go through in life, you're the same. For us, I just don't want us as a church to play around when it comes to these moments. Play around in our neighborhoods, play around in our homes where we're so jacked up on everything but what matters, because what's going to matter when the chips are down and you come to the end of your life is not that you worked more, not that you got one more of whatever you love to do or got one more vacation in. It's going to be like, hey, did I worship God? Did I trust in Him? Did I obey Him? Because worship is not raising our hands and singing a song. It's trust and it's obedience. And should there be moments of celebration? Yes. But there should also be moments, Psalms 95 bears it out, of speechless respect. Come, bow down, let us worship. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker, for He is our God, and we are the people of His pasture, the flock under His care. Moments to be respectful, to be obedient, just to say, God, I need you. But then the Psalms really changes. And we'll close with this. It just changes its tone immediately. Verse 7, let's read it and keep going. For He is our God, and we are the people of His pasture, the flock under His care. Today, I love this. Today, here's that transitional moment. Today, if you would only hear my voice, do not harden your hearts as you did in Meribah, and you did that day in Massah in the wilderness, where your ancestors tested me, they tried me, thought they had, even though they had seen what I did, for 40 years, this is God speaking through the psalmist, for 40 years I was angry with that generation. I said, they're a people whose hearts go astray. They have not known my ways. So I declared an oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest. Whoa. What happened to I will enter His gates with thanksgiving? And what happened to sing to the Lord a new song? And what happened? Now we're like, what? Meribah, Massah, what are you talking about? What's that? Those are geographic places, yes, but they're really an attitude of the heart. The children of Israel, due to the leadership of Moses, but God's hand, were released from slavery and bondage in Egypt, and they were on their way to the promised land, the land that God had promised them, and they began to grumble and complain and test God, and so they ended up wandering around in the wilderness for 40 years. And Meribah and Massah were two places in particular that they really got upset and started to complain and grumble and test God. Meribah and Massah, by the way, in Hebrew, those two towns, the words mean this: testing and contention. And I think to myself, how many of us today, that's all we do is we test and we complain? The children of Israel were convinced that God was not going to make a way for them, even though God made a way for them every step of the way. Many of us today, if we worship God at all, our prayer life consists of, God, you know what, I'm sick of my life. Why are you not doing what I want you to do? People's hearts can get hardened to where we just turn it off and go, I'm not convinced that person's ever going to do anything for me. And you're like, well, I don't really get that with God. You get that in a relationship, right? Some of you have been in explosive relationships where that relationship is over. Your heart got hardened. Too many words were said. Too much water over the dam. Too many things you cannot unsee anymore. And so after a while, even when it comes to marriages, hey, you're like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. I'm not even going to try. My heart is shut down. I'm not even going to give that person a chance anymore. It's over. And I have a feeling if we don't watch it in our self-worship world, if we think God is just the lotto in the sky who should do this for us and the world orbits around us, then we're like, well, God, you didn't do what I wanted you to do, so I'm going to shut it down. There's a lot of people there today. And what does the Bible say that happened to the children of Israel, which is happening to us all over the place? You won't find rest. We're worn out. You ever noticed how worn out people are? We are worn out. Man, I got more to say, but I'm going to close this down. So I want to spend some time at the end just singing a song together. I want to test my sermon on you. Some of you are like, I knew it. He's going to make me raise my hand. There's the test here. You can't leave unless your hands are raised. No. Listen, don't take me wrong. Worship's not manufactured. But I have a feeling you kind of got what hey, God, I need you to pick me up. God, I want to welcome you in my presence. And God, my hands are up because I'm just surrendering to you. I need you in my life. You know, my granddaughter, I pick on her a lot, but she is like the air that I breathe. It's so, with my son getting married and my daughter already out of the house, I'm in a bad spot. I don't like it. I liked being that parent when my kids were home. Sorry, sue me. Some of you are like, not me, kick them out, empty nester. I love it. I'll walk naked wherever I want to go, whenever I want. I mean, I get it. I'm probably going to do that too, but anyway. I'm not. Because Miranda typically just pops in the door like, Is this your house? You didn't live here when you grew up. Not anyway. Livy, I love it. I mean, Mason's room is going to be her room. Already said, Mason, get your stuff out. It's Livy's room now. But Livy and I, we have kind of our things. We do our stuff. And one of the things that we do is we like to listen to songs. We like to listen to one song in particular. Her favorite worship song is a song we're going to close with, Coming Back. It's a song we put in the church last year. She just started learning to talk, and when that song just started to come out, and I just loved it and was listening to it a lot. I think I was learning it one day, trying to play the guitar to it when we were learning the song to sing it in the church, and so Livy gravitated to it. And all this time later, this whole year has gone by, and she'll come over to my house and she'll say, Papa, put on the video. And I know what that means. The church that did the song Coming Back, and we listen to that song over and over and over and over and over and over and over. You get the idea. 3-year-olds can wear you out. And I'm like, Livy, let's watch something else. I feel like a horrible grandparent because I'm like, let's watch The Floor is Lava, or let me teach you about this dinosaur named Barney. Let's do something different than. But then I think, no, if she wants to sing this song, let her sing it. And Giovanna will laugh at me because after a while I'll start crying because Livy she'll just forget where they're oblivious, and her hands will go up because the people on the video's hands are up singing the song, and she'll be like, I'm coming back to my first love. I'm coming back to Jesus. I don't want to be familiar. Treat this like it doesn't matter. Never lose the wonder of His presence. She has no idea what she's even talking about. But she's singing the song because music's universal. I'm with Martin Luther, the great leader of the Protestant Reformation, not Martin Luther King Jr., but Martin Luther, who nailed the 95 Theses to the wall. He was a great hymnologist. He said next to theology, music is the most magnificent, greatest gift that God has ever given mankind, because it's the only art that calms the agitation of the soul. And Livy, with childlike faith, will sing it, and I'll sing it with her, and I'll think, God, please let that be me. I don't want to walk away from my childlike faith. I don't want to lose the wonder of your presence. I want to be that person that runs in and says, God, pick me up. I don't want you up there and me down here. I want to be closer to you today than I was yesterday, and I really want to be closer to you tomorrow than I am today. It can be that simple. Will we get that right all the time? No. But we better fight for it. We better fight for it every single day. Today, if you will hear my voice, remember this, that verse of Scripture, every day is today. Not one time, not that time you got saved way back in the day, but it's make a conscious decision tomorrow to wake up and say, God, I want you in my life. We good? It wasn't nearly as sexy as last week. I get it. Last week, end times, everybody's like, oh, boy, we need that. We need this message more. We can do something about this today. These are the choices that we make to choose to worship an almighty God. The cure for narcissism, the cure for selfishness is worship, true worship. So parents in this room, if you're like, man, my teens are struggling with this right now, make sure they're in church. It's not optional. It's essential. It's not peripheral. It's primary. It's primary. It's the air that we breathe. Corporate worship breeds individual worship. It's the way God has made it, the church, the hope of the world. God, be with us as we walk out the door, as we sing this song to you. Let this song resonate in our lives. May we just have a moment with you to say, God, thank you for loving us, but we surrender our lives. We come back to you. Come back to our first love. We need you. We love you in Jesus' name.